Alright, here we are in Santa Clara County, California. It's February. We've got some cool, clear streams here, and Nathan has found something. Nathan, what have you found?
You know, that's a very complicated question. I don't know exactly what kind of salamander it is. I might guess by the orange belly it's a California newt. And the interesting thing about the California newt is poisonous. It's not harmless. It knows that being harmless isn't a virtue. Being harmless just puts you at the mercy of people who aren't harmless. This newt, through the evolutionary process in millions of years, has developed its dark side. It's gone down and faced the reflection of its own inner self, and it's developed the capacity for violence when it's needed, when it's in the righteous sense. It doesn't use it capriciously, but only when it needs to defend itself. Now, as to your question exactly what kind of salamander it is, like I said, it's a complicated question. It depends what you mean by salamander. It depends what you mean by kind. You know, Carl Jung once said about the archetypes of the human species that dragons made perfect sense because it was the three predators of early humans all wrapped into a one. A big snake, a big bird, and a big cat. But, you know, it could, instead of a snake, it could just well as easily have been a big salamander, a big primordial lizard, you know. So, I don't know, it depends whether you're looking at this from the salamander's perspective or from the human's perspective, and whether you're looking at it from the long-term human perspective or the modern perspective where we know that things aren't dangerous and we're kind of comfortable and we think we're at the top of the food chain and so forth. But he's a very well socialized salamander too. You notice that it's breeding season and he's in the aquatic phase. He doesn't have his rough terrestrial skin anymore because he's playing the game. He knows what he's doing. It's mating season. So he gets a smooth skin on and he goes to the breeding ponds and he tries to mate. He tries to take on responsibility with his life. He's not sitting around in the forest doing nothing and twiddling his thumbs and eating Cheetos and wasting time. He wants to find a mate, and he wants to embrace forthrightly, standing on all 4 feet, facing the world, head up from the ground, from his little newt position. He wants to face the tragedy of life. He wants to spawn the next generation and take that responsibility onto himself. It's a great thing. It's a great thing because, you know, people are always saying rights, rights, rights. That's all we talk about in our society today. Rights for animals, for their habitat to be protected. Phooey. Meaning in life doesn't come from rights. Meaning comes from responsibility. So to me, it's a beautiful thing.
But how do you know he wants to be called a he? Like that seems to be a little old-fashioned, don't you think?
Well, how do you know that he doesn't? And isn't it perfectly reasonable for me to use as my default the pronouns that society has been using for hundreds and hundreds of years to refer to males and females? I mean, you see that he's got that bulb right there under his tail, and he's got the long flat tail. That means that he's biologically a male. And if you want me to, for the sake of political correctness, call him something else, without asking him first, I'll tell you. Especially if you want government to enforce it by fiat, I just won't do it. I won't do it. And I'll tell you, when you're trying to change things as basic as pronouns in the order of the biological system and how males and females relate to each other, when you're pushing this notion that male newts have been oppressing female newts for hundreds and hundreds of years instead of working together to spawn the next generation and avoid predators and things like that, you know, it's really damaging to both sexes. It harkens back for me to Alexander Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago, where, you know, he says that if you have a society that pathologizes, that lies all the time about things as basic as gender, what you get is very close to hell. I mean, look around you. Look at this ecosystem. The stream flowing, you know, in perfect harmony and bringing oxygen down from the hills and bringing nourishment here. In the trees, you know, absorbing the floodwaters and keeping the hillside stabilized for the most part. You've got a system that's in perfect harmony. And you want to say, well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do away with all of it and I'm going to start again. Well, what are the chances you're going to improve on this? I'd say basically 0.